Hey everybody, this is Lomi. I recently decided that I wanted to start doing some of the BJD Addicts community prompts, and I put a poll up on Instagram with a couple of my favorites that I saw when I was looking through the list. I decided I wasn't going to be doing them in order, like not numerically like 1 to 50 whatever that they have so far. I was just going to do the ones that sounded interesting to me because some of them don't really apply to me, or they're things that I have made videos about in the past. There are some things that are kind of evergreen because they change, and I always get more dolls in my collection, or I'll have more projects. But the thing that people wanted to hear about the most was my doll backstories, which probably shouldn't be a surprise because, all of my characters are dolls, or all of my dolls are characters, I guess. And I talk about that quite a bit. But it also means that you guys are kind of gluttons for punishment because I have so many things that I could say about them. I could write a book, which of course I did. And there's actually 6 in this series, and they are all out, and it won an award. So it's not awful, apparently. But I will go over those, but I suspect that the characters that people are most interested in are probably the ones that they don't have the whole book out yet. So there's some that people are a little bit less familiar with, and I'll start with those, and I will go over the backstories for the characters I've created that are the Snake's Blood characters, of course. But I'm going to split it up into 2 types. And that's another thing that I wanted to touch on, was that when it says doll backstories, for some people, they don't do characters like I do. So for some people, it's just a matter of, what's the backstory of you getting the doll. That's something that I talked about before. I did a video where I spoke about all of my dolls and my plans for them, and a little bit also about why I chose the doll sculpts that I did. So I don't think I'm going to cover that today. I'm just going to stick to something about the characters that I've created. If you decide to do this prompt yourself because you liked mine, then by all means go ahead and just talk about, what led you to pick the doll that you did. But anyway, I'm going to do like a cursory explanation of each character's role, but then at the end of the video, because I know not everybody likes to read, and I know not everybody likes to read fantasy specifically, it's going to be like spoiler and non-spoiler versions. So at the beginning, it'll be relatively spoiler-free, just, like a setup of this is who this is, and this is their general role in the story. And then at the end, I'm just gonna, I'll tell you everything in case you're not a reader, so you can you can hear all the twisted story details. So, okay, so quick interruption by video editing Lomi. We are not going to be able to do all of the dolls in this video because I have too much story. So I asked on Instagram how people thought I should split it up, and I am going to break this up a little bit. I'm going to do the non-Snake's Blood characters first. I'm just gonna have to do the other characters in their own video because when I sat down to start editing, I had more than 2 hours of footage, and that's just way too much for me to try to put together in a coherent fashion. So I think this is going to end up being 3 separate videos, and we're going to do the non-Snake's Blood characters, and then the Snake's Blood characters, and then we'll do the Snake's Blood spoilers edition in its own video so that you can more easily just avoid that altogether. And I'll post those across the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to start with these 2 because they have their own story that I unfortunately have not yet had time to start writing. I've been really occupied with a series called Spectrum Legacy, which is an epic fantasy. It's going to be 6 books. I'm working on the 3rd right now. I think I have this one. This is what's taking up all my time, and if you recognize the guy on the cover, I made a little cute chibi Nendoroid doll of him recently, and this is my chunkiest book so far. Unfortunately, I don't have room to have dolls of every character in all of my stories, but at some point I'm going to get to writing a story for these two. So Laylee is an Evil House SID Aria head on the new YID body, and I need to make some adjustments to her wig. It's a little big and it doesn't fit very well. You can never really see her eyes. And then Arios is an Evil House SID Omar. And these two have an interesting background as characters because they started off as me and my husband's Ragnarok online characters. Laylee was my alchemist and Arios was my husband's Assassin Cross. I kept her as an alchemist permanently and never went to biochemist because I thought the alchemist outfit was cuter. I was not a very effective Ragnarok player, but we had a lot of fun. And over time, as we stopped playing Row, we kind of developed stories for the characters first together, and then we both kind of went our own separate ways, and we both have our own versions of the characters and their own stories. And for Arios, my husband has a comic that he's been working on for a couple of years, just on and off as he can fit it in around work. And it is a kind of Middle Eastern Lovecraftian horror fantasy. It takes a lot of inspiration from like Berserk and stuff. And at some point, Laylee will be a guest character in that comic. So, we went really different ways. Laylee has stayed an alchemist in both stories. In the story that I have for the characters, Laylee is supposed to be in a prestigious alchemy school, but she's a little bit adventurous. And that tends to get her into trouble, and her story really begins when an accident that is a result of her pushing limits and trying things that she is not ready for results in her hair being turned permanently green, which of course is a mortifying embarrassment and definitely not culturally acceptable in their world. So she spends a lot of time trying to cover it with dyes, and it doesn't work because it's a result of her alchemy, and alchemy in her story world is touched with magic. So the only way for her to fix it is with more alchemy, and that means looking for an ingredient that may or may not actually exist. The existence of that ingredient is steeped in a lot of mythology. One of the things that this ingredient supposedly can do when it's made into a potion is allow somebody to change one thing permanently about their physical appearance. For Laylee, obviously, she wants that to be her hair. And for Arios, it's his eyes. You can see that his eyes are really bright blue, and in his culture, in the story, blue eyes are a sign that somebody has no soul. The soulless are obviously maligned, people fear them, and there are only a handful of jobs available to them. Arios has spent most of his life traveling, trying to find this ingredient, and an alchemist who can make it into the potion that will allow him to permanently change the color of his eyes so that he can find a new destiny. Those travels are how the two of them meet, and they decide to team up. And it's not until they've been together for a while that they realize there's a problem, because when the potion is made, it's only enough for one. So, next backstory character, I guess it'll be Tall, and he is over here, and you can see he's naked with a test print head on. So I have the head that is the master for what I sculpted here, and I've shared him previously in his own video, but I figured this was going to be a more family-friendly way to share him. But Tall's story, and it's kind of weird to talk about him when he's such a work in progress, and I still don't have his outfit or a wig or eyes or anything like that, but I'm going to be starting it soon, so I'm going to go ahead and include him and get it out of the way. He is another one who has a book, and this is like an omnibus edition that has all three of his novellas in them. Two of them are novellas and one is a shorter novel. But they all go together into this nice, like 120 10,000 word book. And actually, if you wanna read some of this, you can go to my website. There's a link in the video description. And if you sign up for my email newsletter, you can get the first novella for free. But Tal is a thief. And his backstory is that he was supposed to be a mage, and I wish it would focus on him better. He was supposed to be a mage and unfortunately lacked the strength to make anything of himself in the Mage Academy. He ended up being cast out of the Mage Academy and was a little bit bitter at the nobility after that because mages are typically regarded as high class, and it was a way into a better life for him. So because he had always been interested in challenges, he took up thieving. And at some point along the way, he decided he wasn't just going to be a thief, he was going to be the best thief. So his story kind of chronicles going from being a nobody to being the most fearsome thief in his home country, maybe the entire continent. But one thing that made Tal's story fun is that it is actually set in the same story world as Snake's Blood Saga. It happens on a different continent. I've got maps. So yeah, we got maps here. So like Snake's Blood Saga happens like over here in like the Triad and over here on the island. And then Tal's story happens over here. Where's Orad? Here it is. Right there. In this capital city. And this whole lower continent thing is all one empire. And so this is Tal's domain. I'm really hoping that I can get to work on his outfit soon. I recently started taking a sewing class because I thought it would be a fun way to meet some people who have, the same interests as me. And it turns out that one of the instructors of the sewing class really loves dolls, and she even has a few BJDs of her own. So I've been taking like one doll at a time to the class with me, and I'm hoping that one of these days I'll be able to take Tal and start working on a rough draft for his outfit. So I guess that leaves everybody else from the same story except for him, and we're not gonna look at him today because his project is not done, and we'll get to that link. I don't need to tell you Link's story, everybody knows who he is. So I guess I'll grab somebody and then we'll start at the bottom. No, we're gonna start at the top because they're small. Okay, brief aside, because I lied, I do have one other small character who is not a part of Snake's Blood Saga, and that is because it is Lila Belle, my Pookie auntie, and her character was kind of developed after the doll came along because this doll was a gift from my dad. So Lila Belle is a fairy, and she is also a baker. She is a flower fairy. And then her sister, who is a gem planting eye that my daughter plays with, is a flower fairy, and they are two different kinds. So Pansy is a garden flower fairy, and Lila Belle is a bakery flower fairy. Beyond that, though, she doesn't really have any story. She's just for fun and cute. So this is all we're doing for this one, and we're going to visit with the Snake's Blood Saga characters in the next video, or the next video for this, because I think the next video project that I have scheduled to go up is a doll project that actually, makes progress on the dolls themselves and isn't just sharing a little bit about them. So the next time we check in on doll backstories, it'll be the Snake's Blood crew, and then we will look at all of the spoilers for the Snake's Blood Saga series in the edition after that. But this is all for now, and thank you for everybody who weighed in and suggested that this be made into a series, because I really did not expect it to end up being that long. I guess I should not be surprised. I should have expected this, because you cannot condense like 700,000 words of story into like a short video. So yeah, that's all. I'm stopping here, and I will see all of you next week.